In dopamine dominance, we're going to focus predominantly on dopamine. This is obvious. But before we start, I would like you to give you this link to the website. There is a link provided in this course right below this video. And by clicking on this website, you will go to a questionnaire. And by filling in the questions, you will see what dominant neurotransmitter you have. So you can watch this video first and then go to the link. The screenshot that you see below is my own test results. So in summary, I'm dopamine dominant. I scored highest on dopamine, and next was acetylcholine. And then on the lower spectrum, we have GABA and serotonin. So the only problem I found was that GABA is too low, and GABA balances out the other neurotransmitter. So GABA is more inhibitory. It is the neurotransmitter of calmness and stability, also consistency. So if you have problems with being consistent, with being grounded, then it's obviously that GABA and also together with serotonin that there is a bit of a deficiency there, right? And all of these neurotransmitters can be balanced via simple lifestyle changes. So in this screenshot, we see that dopamine and acetylcholine were very high. And at that time, I was very, very active and it didn't take much time to chill out or rest, right? So, which is why GABA and serotonin were on the lower end of the spectrum. So, this is good to know because it's not only about dopamine, it's also about living a life of balance. So, you can be very high dopamine, very high in acetylcholine, having many ideas, want to do many actions, want to perform, right? This is very dopaminergic. The thing is, you can be like this, but sometimes you just need to take a step back and rest. This is the main problem that we see, especially with people who are entrepreneurial. They always want to go, 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 and this is also a bit the Western society that we live in. It's always oriented about action and not enough rest. So rest is important for the calming neurotransmitter GABA and to be also more in the moment, which is via serotonin. So serotonin is more responsible for that one. Why you want to be high dopamine? This graph explains it. Let's suppose we have two persons and one person has low dopamine, which you can see on the graph, and the other person is high dopamine, which you can see above. So what this means is that the low dopamine person needs a way bigger form of stimulation than the high dopamine person to feel a high, right? So if you are high dopamine, then in generally you feel happy, content, and you need less stimulation to feel something, to feel a remarkable change. The thing is that high dopamine is more in control over stimuli, over impulses than someone who is low dopamine. So low dopamine always equals with less control and more prone to addiction, whereas high dopamine equals to be more in control over addiction and not be less prone into falling into addictive patterns. So this is why you want to be high dopamine. Another reason you want to be high in dopamine is that dopamine stimulates testosterone production and it also opposes prolactin. So, in general, or in conclusion, dopamine is good for a lot of things. Again, why high dopamine? Well, you'll be less inclined to fall into addictions or addictive patterns or habits. You're more inclined to discover and expand. So, dopamine really triggers the excitement of exploration, so being more explorative. And of course, as a man, you want to expand. So, someone who is dopamine driven is very much oriented in expansion, right? So, it favors business, therefore. It also favors your hormones, especially testosterone, and overall you will be happy and content when of course balanced with the other neurotransmitters. What are the signs of low dopamine? or low dopamine sensitivity. So there is a distinction here. We can be low dopamine, which means that we have less of the neurotransmitter dopamine, but we can also be less sensitive to dopamine. This means that we have enough of the neurochemicals, the neurotransmitters, but our dopamine receptors are simply not that sensitive, okay? So this could be both. So it can either be lack of dopamine or lack of dopamine sensitivity. So the signs are lack of motivation, purpose, and drive in life to accomplish something. Addiction and dependence on substances or depending on a like destructive or negative habit. Being less social, so more asocial, less curious, and less explorative. Also, lacking creativity and the will to solve your own problems is also a sign of low dopamine. Lack of pleasure in life and hedonia, and low testosterone and high prolactin levels. So, these are a few signs of low dopamine. There are obviously way more signs, physiological signs of low dopamine, but just to give you a few, these are the main ones.